Luxury cars are made to impress, fast, loud, and expensive. But behind the shine, some of these cars have been part of terrifying endings. In this video, we'll go through 5 more real stories of disturbing deaths linked to high-end car crashes. These aren't simple accidents. They're violent, sudden, and full of strange details. Some involved public figures. Others ended in ways that don't make sense. These crashes didn't just take lives. They left behind fear, rumors, and silence. It was the afternoon of August 23, 2018 in San Diego, California. Traffic on Interstate 805 was moving as usual, but at around 4:30 p.m., drivers began calling 911. A black McLaren 650S, valued at nearly $500,000, was speeding the wrong way on the freeway, going over 100 miles per hour. Moments later, it crashed head-on into a 2010 Hyundai SUV. The crash was violent. Both cars caught fire. Debris flew across the highway and hit more than a dozen other vehicles. One person was injured and taken to the hospital but survived. Inside the Hyundai were 43-year-old Eileen Pizarro and her 12-year-old daughter, Ariana. Both were pronounced dead at the scene. The McLaren's driver was also killed. He was identified as 18-year-old Trevor Heitman, a YouTube content creator known online as McSkillet, with close to 900,000 subscribers. Just 30 minutes earlier, Trevor had driven the same car through the gates of Ashley Falls Elementary School. Witnesses said he nearly hit pedestrians. He then got out of the car, threw an object at a door, broke a window, and drove off. No one was harmed, but the event left people unsettled. Authorities confirmed that Trevor was involved in both incidents. Based on the speed, direction, and his earlier behavior, many believe the crash was not accidental. For his followers, the news was shocking. Trevor became well known in the gaming world, especially for his videos about Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, or CS:GO. He also ran a business where he bought, sold, and designed digital weapon skins, some of which were worth thousands of dollars. At one point, his collection was valued at more than $100,000. But in early 2018, things began to fall apart. Valve, the company behind CS:GO, banned Trevor from trading after linking him to a website that involved gambling using in-game items. His account was permanently locked, and he lost access to everything he had built. After that, Trevor stopped posting online. His social media presence faded. Friends and fans noticed a change in his behavior. Some believe the crash may have been intentional, though police never confirmed that. At a press conference, the California Highway Patrol said they couldn't speak about Trevor's mental state. Toxicology results later confirmed that there were no substances or alcohol in his system, and the case was ultimately ruled accidental. What was confirmed was that Trevor entered the freeway at Carroll Canyon Road, driving south in the northbound HOV lane at over 100 miles per hour when he struck the Hyundai. Eileen Pizarro, who was driving the SUV, was a licensed therapist. She lived in San Diego's College area with her 3 kids, Dominic, 22, Angelo, 19, and Ariana, 12. That Thursday, Eileen and Ariana were heading to Orange County. Ariana was set to start 7th grade that Monday. She loved jazz music and dreamed of becoming a singer. Her brother Dominic said she was full of energy and very strong-willed. When officers arrived to deliver the news, Dominic said he completely broke down. He described his mother as selfless and deeply devoted to her children. Because of the fire, Eileen and Ariana's bodies were difficult to identify. Dominic started a fundraiser to help cover funeral costs, and within days it raised over $7,000. He shared how his family was struggling to accept what had happened. Photos from the crash showed the McLaren reduced to burned, twisted metal. Emergency crews closed the freeway for nearly 10 hours to clean up the scene. The story spread quickly online. Many couldn't believe the driver was McSkillet. In one of his past videos, Trevor had shown off the same McLaren, saying it could beat nearly any car in a drag race. He never revealed his face, so until that moment, most only knew his digital persona. Some believed that losing access to his account had ruined his future. Others thought the crash may have been a tragic accident. Authorities were still exploring all possible causes, including health or emotional issues. In just 30 minutes, from crashing through school gates at 4:00 p.m. to the deadly collision at 4:30 p.m., everything fell apart. At the school, staff confirmed someone had damaged property but said no one was hurt. Still, many were shaken by how close it came to being worse. On the freeway, the wreckage left behind told the story. Burned out vehicles, a grieving family, and a life cut short in seconds. It was just after midnight on March 11, 2009, in Newport Beach, California. The streets were quiet until the sounds of two engines broke the silence. Driving at nearly 100 miles per hour were two cars, a white 1977 Porsche and a red Ferrari 360 Challenge Stradale. Behind the Porsche was 53-year-old Jeffrey David Kirby. Driving the Ferrari was Charles "Mask" Lewis Jr., co-founder of Tapu Tea, one of the biggest brands in mixed martial arts. Charles wasn't a professional fighter, but he was deeply involved in MMA. Born on June 23, 1963, he came from a humble background and had a vision for the sport long before it became popular. In 1997, he and two friends, Dan "Punk-Ass" Caldwell and Tim "Skyscrape" Katz, started selling t-shirts out of the back of a rundown Mustang. That small start grew into Tapu Tea, a brand that would go on to sponsor fighters and help MMA gain mainstream recognition. By 2007, Tapu Tea was earning more than $22 million each year. Charles, known for wearing face paint and his bold personality, was also known as generous and loyal. He wasn't just selling clothing, he was supporting fighters who had little to no financial help. People like Dana White and Joe Rogan later said that MMA wouldn't be where it is today without Charles. On that night, shortly before 1:00 a.m., Charles was driving his red Ferrari through Newport Beach. His 23-year-old girlfriend, Lacey Lynn White, was in the passenger seat. Witnesses said Charles and Kirby were driving aggressively, weaving in and out of traffic in what looked like a high-speed chase. Kirby had been drinking that night. 2 hours after the crash, his blood alcohol level was still almost twice the legal limit. He also had 2 past convictions for driving under the influence, including one from 2002. As they sped down the road, Kirby lost control of his car and crashed into Charles's Ferrari. The Ferrari hit a curb and slammed into a concrete light pole. The damage was extreme. The Ferrari broke in half. The front of the car remained near the pole. The back half flew nearly 30 feet down the road. Charles was trapped inside. Emergency crews arrived, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. Lacey was thrown from the car and landed on a dirt embankment. She survived, but had serious injuries, including fractures and cuts. Kirby fled and parked his Porsche a quarter mile away. Police found and arrested him later that night. He was charged with gross vehicular while under the influence and fleeing the scene of a fatal crash. Toxicology reports confirmed that Charles had no substances in his system. He didn't drink or use anything, and those close to him had always said the same. Kirby, on the other hand, had clearly been impaired. During the trial, Kirby's lawyer tried to say that Charles had also been speeding, but the jury saw through it. Kirby was found guilty and faced up to 13 years in prison. Charles's death shook the MMA community. He wasn't just a businessman, he was a mentor and a friend. UFC fighters like Chuck Liddell and Josh Barnett had lived with him during tough times in their careers. Dana White said, "We loved him." Zuffa CEO Lorenzo Fertitta added that Charles helped many fighters stay afloat financially. A public memorial was held on April 14, 2009 in Garden Grove. That July, Charles was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame, the first non-fighter to receive that honor. His name was placed inside the octagon. Through Tapu Tea's reality show, he had introduced future stars like Donald "Cowboy" Cerrone to millions. He gave his time and money, often with no return. In 1999, Tapu Tea made $30,000. By 2008, that number had passed $100 million. Despite the success, Charles stayed focused on people. His motto was simple: simply believe. Charles Lewis Jr. died at the height of his influence. His legacy still lives on in the sport he helped build and the fighters he believed in. It was April 6, 2024 in Los Angeles, California. At around 5 a.m., the city was still quiet. On the corner of Sherman Way and Reseda Boulevard, 2 LAPD officers noticed something strange. A white 2019 Lamborghini Huracan was stopped at a red light. But even when the light turned green, the car didn't move. They pulled up next to the vehicle and shone a spotlight inside. Behind the wheel was a man who appeared to be asleep. The officers turned on their lights and pulled the car over. The driver was 51-year-old Elliot Dugan, a local man with a long criminal record. They tapped on the window and woke him up. "Do you know why I pulled you over?" one of the officers asked. "No," Dugan replied. "You were asleep at the light." Dugan stayed calm. He said the Lamborghini was a rental and handed over his license and registration. The officers returned to their vehicle to check the information, and that's when everything changed. The car had been reported stolen, and Dugan wasn't just a tired driver. He had multiple outstanding felony warrants. This was no longer a simple traffic stop. The officers returned and asked Dugan to step out of the vehicle, but he refused. He claimed the car wasn't stolen and that he had rented it. He became argumentative and asked for his license back, saying he knew the law. Despite the officers' calm requests, Dugan wouldn't cooperate. Then, without warning, he floored the gas pedal. The Lamborghini shot down Sherman Way, quickly reaching extreme speeds. The officers rushed back to their patrol car, but by then, Dugan was already far ahead. Surveillance footage captured the Lamborghini speeding through the streets at 113 miles per hour. Moments later, there was silence. No braking, no warning, just a crash. Near the intersection of Vinalden Avenue and Sherman Way, the Lamborghini hit the center median at full speed. The car was torn in half. The impact destroyed several trees, and debris flew in all directions. Security cameras didn't catch the crash itself, but body cam footage showed the aftermath. One half of the car was in the westbound lane. The other was across the street. Auto parts and broken glass were scattered across more than 100 feet. Smoke rose from parts of the wreck, and some flames had to be put out by officers. As police searched the scene, they realized Dugan wasn't inside the car. They looked around and called out his name. Some local residents came outside, confused and alarmed by the crash. No one had seen anyone run. Moments later, officers found Elliot Dugan's body on the sidewalk in front of a nearby apartment complex. He had been thrown from the vehicle during the crash. Paramedics arrived shortly after, but it was already too late. Dugan was pronounced dead at the scene. The crash had caused serious damage beyond just the Lamborghini. Several parked cars were hit by debris. Windows shattered, roofs were dented, and at least 4 cars showed visible damage. A tree had also fallen onto one of them. Reports later showed Dugan had been in and out of Los Angeles County Jail over the past few years. His latest release was in January, after being held on a misdemeanor. At the time of this crash, he was not being held on bond. Following the incident, the LAPD released body cam and dash cam footage that showed the full event, from finding him asleep to the high-speed escape. They confirmed the car had been stolen before the crash. An internal investigation was launched to review whether the proper procedures were followed during the stop and the chase. Captain Kelly Muniz stated that it could take months and would involve video review, forensic analysis, and possible witness interviews. As of now, no new details have been released about the original owner of the vehicle or when it was taken. But one thing was clear: in just a few seconds, a man with open warrants in a stolen car made a decision that would end his life. Elliot Dugan was 51 years old. It was May 18, 2024, in Pune, India. Vedant Agarwal, a 17-year-old from a wealthy builder's family, had just finished his final high school exams. That night he went out to celebrate with friends. By the next morning, 2 people were dead, and a much deeper story had begun to unfold. One involving privilege, influence, and an effort to dodge accountability. Vedant and his friends first went to Kosi, a bar in Koregaon Park, around 10:30 p.m. Even though they were all underage, they were served alcohol. They drank until midnight, spending 48,000 rupees, paid with Vedant's grandfather's credit card. When Kosi stopped serving them, they moved to Black Club inside Marriott Suites and spent another 20,000 rupees. By 1:22 a.m. they had left. Despite being extremely intoxicated and having a driver with him, Vedant insisted on driving his father's unregistered Porsche Taycan Turbo S. Around 2:30 a.m., while speeding through the Kalyani Nagar junction at nearly 200 kilometers per hour, he hit a motorbike carrying 2 24-year-old IT professionals, Anish Awadia and Ashwini Koshta. Ashwini died instantly. Anish was rushed to a hospital but didn't survive. The Porsche was destroyed on impact. Witnesses said there were no brake marks at the scene. Locals pulled Vedant from the car and handed him over to the police. But things quickly took a strange turn. Within 50 minutes, a politician named Sunil Tingray arrived at the station. He had been called by Vedant's father, Vishal Agarwal, a well-known developer. Shortly after, the police's handling of the case began to raise eyebrows. Vedant wasn't tested for alcohol right away. His test was delayed by more than 8 hours, enough time for substances to leave his system. He was taken to Sassoon Hospital around 9 o'clock a.m., but the sample wasn't collected until 11 o'clock a.m. Reports also claimed he was given pizza and burgers while in custody, though police denied this. Later, it was revealed that the blood sample didn't belong to Vedant. It had allegedly been swapped with his mother's. This led to the arrest of hospital staff and others. Vaidant appeared before the Juvenile Justice Board and was released the same day. His bail conditions included writing a short essay on road safety, visiting a police station for 15 days, attending counseling, and getting treatment for his alcohol use. The public was outraged. A minor with no license had caused the deaths of 2 people and was let off lightly. On May 20th, Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis visited Pune and called for Vaidant to be tried as an adult. More arrests followed. Vaidant's father was charged under the Juvenile Justice Act for allowing him to drive and for encouraging his behavior. His grandfather, aged 77, was also arrested for allegedly confining the driver and trying to force him to take the blame. 2 senior doctors, Dr. Ajay Tawari and Dr. Srihari Halnor, were arrested for switching Vaidant's blood sample. Investigators found that other people were involved in swapping samples for Vaidant and his friends. A man named Arun Kumar Singh was arrested for helping cover up the events. 2 more individuals had even offered their own blood samples to pass them off as those of the boys. Eventually, a 900-page charge sheet was filed, detailing how 7 people helped manipulate evidence. The bars that served the group were shut down, and other illegal clubs in the area were demolished. Vaidant's bail was later canceled, and he was sent to an observation home until June 5th. Authorities pressed more serious charges, including those related to causing death through negligence. 2 officers were suspended, and the police commissioner launched an investigation into how Vaidant received special treatment. The story drew nationwide attention. Even public figures shared past experiences with Vaidant, accusing him of being a school bully whose behavior had long gone unchecked. Protests and criticism poured in. Rahul Gandhi called out the justice system for treating the rich differently. Despite efforts to cover things up, public pressure kept the case alive. On May 25th, after a petition from Vaidant's aunt, the Bombay High Court ordered him released into her custody. Then, on July 26th, the Pune police officially filed their detailed charge sheet. 2 members of the Juvenile Justice Board were later removed for irregularities in how the bail was handled. In the end, the deaths of Anish and Ashwini exposed how deeply influence can twist justice. Their families are still waiting for truth, for answers, and for real consequences. It was April 19, 2025, in Concordia, Sagittaria, a quiet town in northern Italy. Luca Polito, a 51-year-old construction business owner, was taking his new Lamborghini Gallardo for a drive. He had bought the luxury car just days earlier, a dream he had finally made real. Riding with him was a friend in the passenger seat. The Gallardo, a supercar worth around 90,000 pounds and capable of reaching 200 miles per hour, was still unfamiliar to him. Luca wasn't just known for his business success. He was known for being generous, humble, and supportive. He was married to Sonia Trevisan and had a son named Andrea. After losing both of his brothers in recent years due to illness, Luca had become the last surviving sibling in his family. But that April afternoon, everything changed. Around 2:00 p.m., Luca was driving on a narrow rural road outside of town, bordered by farmland and shallow canals. According to witnesses, the Lamborghini suddenly sped up. Moments later, it swerved, flipped into the air, and landed upside down in one of the nearby canals. The water in the canal was only 28 centimeters deep, but the crash caused the vehicle to fill with mud and water quickly. Within seconds, the car was almost entirely submerged, trapping both Luca and his passenger inside. Drivers nearby saw the accident and called emergency services. Some even rushed to help but couldn't open the jammed car doors. Rescue teams arrived soon after. They managed to pull the passenger out first. He was alive but seriously hurt and was taken to a hospital in Portogruaro. His injuries were serious but not life-threatening. Luca, however, had been underwater longer. Still buckled into his seat, he was unresponsive when pulled out. Paramedics tried to save him, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. The likely cause of death was drowning. The news spread quickly. Many people in town were shocked. Luca was known to be cautious, especially about safety. Something had clearly gone wrong. Police and investigators from the Pordenone prosecutor's office launched a full investigation. They began by looking at possible causes: mechanical failure or driver error. Early crash reconstructions pointed to loss of control at high speed. Some mentioned a tricky stretch of road or a possible traction issue, but nothing was confirmed. The Lamborghini was inspected for mechanical faults. Media across Italy covered the story. Some said Luca was still getting used to the car's powerful engine. Even at lower speeds, a car like the Gallardo can be difficult to handle without experience. While investigators searched for answers, Luca's family was left in grief. His wife and son had grown concerned when he didn't come home and wasn't answering his phone. After already going through the loss of 2 brothers and a sister-in-law, the family was once again struck by tragedy. Luca was buried on Wednesday, April 23rd in Portogruaro. The town of Concordia Sagittaria mourned his loss. The mayor, Claudio Odorico, called it a heavy loss for the community. Local restaurant owners who knew Luca personally described him as thoughtful and always willing to help others. His parents, still living, had now lost all 3 of their sons. As of now, investigators are still trying to determine the exact cause of the crash. Whether it was a technical issue or a moment of misjudgment, the outcome was devastating. The Gallardo, built for speed and control, can be dangerous in inexperienced hands. But even that doesn't fully explain how a shallow canal ended in such tragedy. Luca's friend is still recovering in the hospital, and the community is left waiting for answers, holding on to the memory of a man who quietly shaped the lives of those around him.